Hi, this is Adam, and welcome back for the second part of this introduction to the Swedish vowels. In this second part, I will present each written Swedish vowel and the sounds that it represents. For pedagogical reasons, I will not present them in alphabetical order. Also, if you have not watched the first part of this introduction, covering some more theoretical aspects of the Swedish vowel system, I highly recommend you do so. Okay, let's get started. First up is the letter A. When long, this letter is pronounced A. This is similar to the sound in English father and palm, but the Swedish sound is actually somewhat rounded, with slight protruding lip rounding. A, ha, al, gata, far. Short A is pronounced A. This is the common A sound that you make of the dentist and which is found in a lot of major languages such as French, Spanish, German, Japanese, Russian, Chinese, and so on. A. App, ratt, mask, anka. Next up is the letter Ä. And remember, this is not an A with two dots, it's the letter Ä. When long, this is pronounced Ä, which is similar to the E in English get, only longer. Ä, fä, ät, även, häl. When short, this is Ä, which is pretty much the same, but short. Ä, ett, läpp, bäst, väska. There's one exception here though. Before an R, this letter is pronounced A, which is the same vowel as in English cat. This sound can also be long and short. A, svär, ära, verk, ärta. Then we have the letter E. The long version of this letter is pronounced E. This is basically the same vowel as in French clé and German zehn, and it's similar to the first part of the vowel in the English word game. A Swedish peculiarity though is that it's common for this sound to end with a very weak schwa, the unstressed vowel I talked about in part 1. This is the reason that it might sound like there's some kind of small pause after the actual vowel when you hear it within words. E, se, er, veta, lek. Short E is pronounced E. Yep, that's exactly the same as short E. When these two letters are short, there's absolutely zero difference between the two of them. E, ett, skepp, mest, beska. When short E is unstressed, it can also be pronounced as a schwa. Vete, timme, kommer. And just like ä, short E is pronounced ä before R. Long E can be ä in front of R as well, but this is rare and limited to a few words and names. Erbjuda, modern, verk, herre. Next is the letter Ö. This is no real English equivalent, so I'm not going to try to give it one. Basically, it's the same sound as the letter E, but with rounded lips. It's similar to the vowel in French p and German schön, but in Swedish, this roundedness is protruded. Remember? That's the pouty kind of rounding, so lips out when you say this vowel. Long Ö is pronounced Ö. Just as with long E, this commonly ends in a weak schwa. Ö, tö, öl, öva, kön. Short Ö is pronounced Ö, which is the same sound as short E and Ä, but with rounded lips. Ö, kött, höst, öppna. And just like E and Ä, Ö opens up before an R to become Ö. This sound is a rounded equivalent to the Ä sound that we talked about earlier. Ö, kör, öra, dörr, störta. After this, we have the letter O. When long, this is pronounced O. This is the same sound as in French beau and German Sohn, and similar to the first part of the American English vowel O in go. Like in all of these languages, Swedish O also has protruded lip rounding. And just like long E and Ö, long O tends to be followed by a weak schwa. O, nå, åt, måla, skå. The short version is pronounced O, which is slightly more open than the long version. O, lång, nådd, hållt, åtta. Moving on to the letter I. The long version of this letter is pronounced I. This is similar to the sound in English feet or beat of the letter I in languages such as French, German, and Spanish. But it's not exactly the same because Swedish I is pronounced slightly further towards the front of the mouth. Also, remember how the long vowels we just gone through ended in weak schwas? Yeah, long I doesn't end in a weak schwa, but it does end in a y sound, like the Y in English U, and this time it's not weak. I. Listen carefully for that closing y. When you make a long I, it is always present. I, vi, is, riva, pil. Short I is simpler. It's pronounced I, which is somewhere in between the vowels in English beat and bit, but of course always short. I, in, vill, kind, lista. Next, the letter Y. This letter has the same sound values as the letter I, only rounded. It's similar to the vowels in French bu and German tür, but its rounding is protruded and quite markedly so. When you make this sound, you should be really pouting your lips. Okay, long Y is pronounced y, protruded rounding, and notice how it ends in a y, just like long I did. Y, ny, yr, byta, lys. Short Y is pronounced y, and is the same as short I, but with lip rounding. And remember to pout. Y, bytt, rygg, tyst, ylle. Next up is U. Beware of this letter because its sound in Swedish does not match the common perception of how this is generally pronounced, and it is not pronounced like in German or Spanish. Long U is pronounced U. This is actually pronounced very similarly to a long Y, but it's not as far to the front of the mouth. It's similar to the vowels in French bu and German tür, and vaguely reminiscent of the vowel of American English choose, but in Australian, New Zealand, or Scottish pronunciation, choose would be more close. The main characteristic of this sound, and what sets it apart from long Y, is that it's pronounced with compressed lip rounding, that is, with pursed lips. Like long I and Y, it also ends with a consonantal sound, in this case a w. Because this w is compressed, we'll write it like this. And like with I and Y, this w is always present, which means that every time you say a long u, you have to end it with this closing w. U, du, ut, lura, kul. Short U is pronounced U. This is a sound halfway between short Ö and short O, which means that it's a central vowel. To put it somewhat more specifically, it's kind of like a schwa, but with rounded lips. U, upp, tung, lukt, fumla. Okay, final letter, O. The long version is pronounced U. This is pretty much the same vowel as in English pool and school, but is pronounced slightly further to the back of the mouth. It's the same sound commonly written with a U in languages such as Spanish and German. Unlike most other languages, however, Swedish U is pronounced with compressed rounding, which makes it a bit of a phonetic oddball. And also, just like the letter U, this sound is accompanied by a final W sound, which is always present. U. So remember, compressed lip rounding and final W. U, ko, os, ropa, grov. Short O is pronounced U, which is more or less a short version of the long vowel just described. It's pretty close to the vowel in English bull. U, rodd, orm, hosta, kokt. But unfortunately, we're not done with the letter O, because the letter O is one of the most evil things about Swedish spelling, and if you haven't already, I guarantee you that you will end up cursing it at some point. The reason for this is that the letter O can be pronounced either as one of the two sounds that I just presented to you, or identically to the letter O. Yep, that's right, and there's nothing we can do about it. Kol, sova, om, komma. There are tendencies and some patterns for this, but ultimately, you can't know when it's supposed to be U and when it's supposed to be O. Isn't that just fantastic? The rule of thumb usually given is that when long, it's most often U, while when short, it's most often O, but I would not advise you to rely too heavily on this. Okay, we're done. Now, let's sum this vocalic monstrosity up. So, we have short vowels, and we have long vowels. This is important, as you know. We have vowels pronounced in the front of the mouth, and we have vowels pronounced in the back of the mouth. We also have two short vowels pronounced somewhere in between. Some vowels are unrounded, but most are actually rounded. Of these, I, Ö, Å, A are protruded, while U and O are compressed. Long I and Y are pronounced with the subsequent Y. Long U and O are followed by a W. Long E, Ö, and O are followed by a very weak schwa. So that's it. That's all of them. This has been a very quick and somewhat technical walkthrough, but I hope that you've been able to follow me through it. Feel free to go back and listen again, and I encourage you to review the vowels and practice saying them aloud. Swedish does have a lot of vowels, I know, and that can take some time getting used to, but no sound in any language is impossible for a human to master, so just keep at it. Also, stay tuned for further videos going more in depth into the individual vowels, contrasting similar ones with each other. Thank you for watching.